Hi everyone, I'm Emma, and I'm about to tell you the most shocking story of my life. This is about the day DNA results changed everything I thought I knew about my family, and why the people who called me adopted garbage suddenly went dead silent. I was adopted when I was 3 years old by the Morrison family. Robert and Linda Morrison seemed like loving parents at first, but as I grew older, I realized I was treated very differently from their biological children, my older brother Jake and younger sister Melissa. While Jake and Melissa got designer clothes, private tutoring, and college funds, I got hand-me-downs and constant reminders that I should be grateful for having a roof over my head. The word adopted was thrown around like an insult in our house. Whenever I disagreed with something or didn't meet their expectations, I'd hear things like, "That's just your bad genes showing," or "We should have expected this from adopted garbage." The worst part was family gatherings. Jake and Melissa would openly mock me in front of our extended family, calling me names and making jokes about how I didn't belong. Uncle Tom would always say things like, "Well, you never know what you're getting with those adopted kids," right to my face. And my adoptive parents? They would just laugh along or tell me I was being too sensitive. Everything changed during my senior year of high school when we had a genetics unit in biology class. Our teacher, Mrs. Chen, assigned us a project about heredity and encouraged us to research our family trees. Most kids were excited to trace their ancestry, but I felt embarrassed because I knew nothing about my biological family. When I got home that day, I asked Linda if she had any information about my birth parents. She looked annoyed and said, "Emma, why do you need to know about them? We're your family now. Those people gave you away for a reason." But I persisted. "It's just for a school project. I need some medical history or something." Robert overheard and came into the kitchen. "Listen, Emma, your birth parents were probably drug addicts or criminals. That's why you ended up in foster care. Be grateful we took you in and stop asking questions about people who didn't want you." Their words stung, but they also made me more determined. I had been saving money from my part-time job at the local bookstore, and I decided to use some of it to order a DNA test kit online. I figured if I couldn't learn about my biological family from my adoptive parents, I'd find out for myself. I ordered the test secretly and had it delivered to my friend Ashley's house. Following the instructions, I spit in the tube and mailed it back, then waited anxiously for 6 weeks for the results. During those weeks, the treatment at home seemed to get worse. Jake had been accepted to an expensive private university, and the whole family was celebrating. During the celebration dinner, Jake looked at me and said, "Too bad adopted garbage like you will never amount to anything. Mom and Dad are investing in real family, not charity cases." Everyone laughed, including my adoptive parents. I excused myself and went to my room, fighting back tears. I had dealt with this treatment for 15 years, but it never stopped hurting. Finally, the email came. My DNA results were ready. I logged into the website from the library at school because I didn't want to risk anyone seeing this at home. What I saw made my hands shake so badly I could barely scroll through the information. The results showed something I never expected. According to the DNA analysis, I had close genetic matches with several people in the database. But the most shocking part was a match labeled close family with someone named Patricia Morrison. The relationship was listed as aunt-niece with 99.9% certainty. Morrison, the same last name as my adoptive family. I spent the next few days researching everything I could about Patricia Morrison. Through social media and public records, I discovered she was Robert Morrison's sister who had lived in California for the past 20 years. She had a daughter named Emma who would be about my age now. The pieces started falling into place in the most horrible way. I wasn't just some random adopted child. I was Robert's biological niece, and if Patricia was my aunt, that meant my biological mother was either Patricia or another Morrison sibling. I dug deeper and found old obituaries. There it was. Michael Morrison, Robert's younger brother, had died in a car accident 18 years ago. The obituary mentioned that he was survived by his wife Sarah and daughter Emma, age 3. Sarah Morrison, Emma Morrison, my real parents. I felt like I was going to be sick. Robert and Linda had never told me that my biological father was Robert's own brother. They had let me believe for 15 years that my birth parents were strangers who didn't want me, when the truth was that my father had died and my mother had apparently given me to his brother to raise. But why had they treated me so terribly if I was actually Robert's niece? Why had they let the family call me adopted garbage when I was their own flesh and blood? I needed answers, but I knew I had to be smart about this. I couldn't just confront them directly because they'd probably deny everything. Instead, I decided to contact Patricia Morrison directly. I found her email address through her business website and sent her a message explaining who I was and what I had discovered. I attached my DNA results and asked if she could help me understand what had happened. Patricia responded within hours, and her email made me cry. She wrote, "Emma, I have been looking for you for 15 years. When your father died, your mother Sarah was devastated and struggling with severe depression. She asked Robert to take care of you temporarily while she got help. We were told you were being well cared for and that Sarah could see you when she was better. But then Robert cut off all contact and told us you had been placed with another family. We tried to find you, but he told us it was better if we didn't interfere. I never stopped thinking about you." She also revealed something that shattered my heart completely. My biological mother Sarah had recovered from her depression and had been trying to find me for over a decade. She had remarried and had been hoping to reunite with me once I turned 18. Patricia sent me photos of Sarah and my father Michael. Looking at them was like looking in a mirror. I had my father's eyes and my mother's smile. I looked nothing like the Morrison family I had grown up with, but I looked exactly like my real parents. Patricia also told me something that made me furious. When Michael died, he had left a life insurance policy worth $500,000 specifically for my care and education. The money had been given to Robert as my guardian, supposedly to provide for my needs and secure my future. That money had been meant for me. My biological father had made sure I would be taken care of, and instead of using it for my benefit, Robert and Linda had apparently spent it on their own children while treating me like a burden. I now understood why they had treated me so badly. They had taken me in not out of love, but to get access to that insurance money. They had stolen my inheritance and then made me feel guilty for existing. Patricia wanted to arrange a meeting between me and my biological mother Sarah, but I told her I needed to confront my adoptive family first. I needed them to know that I knew the truth. I spent the next week planning exactly what I was going to do. I printed out all the DNA results, the emails from Patricia, and the photos of my real parents. I also did some research and found records of the life insurance policy that had been paid out to Robert. The perfect opportunity came during Sunday dinner, when the extended family was gathered as usual. Jake was bragging about his upcoming college plans, and Uncle Tom was making his usual comments about how real Morrison children were destined for success. "Speaking of real Morrison children," I said, standing up and pulling out my folder of documents, "I have something interesting to share with everyone." The room went quiet. Robert looked annoyed and said, "Emma, sit down. This isn't the time for your drama." "Actually, Dad, I think this is the perfect time," I said, using the word "dad" with deliberate emphasis. "Because I just found out something fascinating about my DNA." I pulled out the first document, my DNA results, and placed it on the table. It turns out I'm not just some random adopted garbage after all. I'm actually a Morrison, a real Morrison. The silence in that room was deafening. You could have heard a pin drop. Robert's face went completely white, and Linda looked like she was about to faint. Jake and Melissa stopped mid-bite, and Uncle Tom's usual smug expression disappeared entirely. "What are you talking about?" Robert finally managed to say, but his voice was shaking. I placed the DNA results directly in front of him. "I'm talking about the fact that I'm not some stranger's unwanted child. I'm Michael Morrison's daughter, your brother's daughter, your niece." The room erupted in whispers and gasps. Several family members started looking at the documents I was passing around. Patricia's photo was right there on the table, showing the clear family resemblance. "I also found out some other interesting things," I continued, pulling out the emails from Patricia. "Like how my biological mother Sarah didn't abandon me. She gave me to you temporarily while she recovered from grief after losing her husband, your brother, in a car accident. She expected to get me back." Linda finally found her voice. "Emma, this is complicated. You don't understand the full situation." "Oh, I understand perfectly," I said, pulling out the insurance documents. "I understand that my biological father left a $500,000 life insurance policy for my care and education. I understand that this money was given to you as my guardian to provide for my needs." I looked around the room at all the expensive clothes Jake and Melissa were wearing, at the jewelry Linda had on, at the luxury car keys sitting on the counter. "I understand that instead of using that money for my benefit, you spent it on yourselves while making me feel like a burden. You took my inheritance and then called me adopted garbage for 15 years. The room was completely silent now. Uncle Tom, who had always been the loudest about my not being a real Morrison, was staring at the documents with his mouth open. And the best part, I continued, is that my biological mother Sarah has been looking for me this entire time. She recovered from her depression years ago, remarried, and has been trying to track me down because she thought I had been placed with strangers. She had no idea that her own brother-in-law was keeping her daughter from her. Robert finally stood up, his face red with anger. Emma, you have no right to go digging into things that don't concern you. Don't concern me? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. My own family history doesn't concern me? My biological parents don't concern me? The inheritance that was meant for me doesn't concern me? I pulled out the last document, contact information for a family law attorney that Patricia had recommended. Actually, everything about this concerns me, including the fact that what you did might be considered fraud. Linda started crying. Emma, please. We loved you. We raised you. No, I said firmly. You took me in for the money and then spent 15 years making me feel like I was worthless. You let everyone call me adopted garbage when you knew the whole time that I was family. You kept me from my real mother who was grieving and looking for me. Jake, who had been silent this entire time, finally spoke up. So what happens now? I looked at him, remembering every cruel comment he had made over the years. Now you all get to live with the consequences of your choices. I've already been in contact with my biological mother, and we're arranging to meet. I'm also exploring legal options regarding the misuse of my inheritance. I started gathering up my documents. But most importantly, I want everyone in this room to remember this moment. Remember how you treated me when you thought I was just some unwanted adopted child. Remember the names you called me and the way you made me feel. I looked directly at Uncle Tom. Remember telling me that I would never amount to anything because I wasn't a real Morrison. Well, guess what? I am a real Morrison. More real than you'll ever be, because I earned my place in this family through blood, not through cruelty. As I walked toward the door, Robert tried to stop me. Emma, wait, we can work this out. We can explain everything. I turned around one last time. There's nothing to explain. I know exactly who you are now. And more importantly, I know exactly who I am. I left that house and drove straight to Ashley's, where I called Patricia. Within an hour, she had connected me with my biological mother Sarah via video call. Seeing Sarah's face for the first time in 15 years was overwhelming. We both cried as she told me how much she had missed me and how hard she had tried to find me. She showed me photos of my father that she had saved, and told me stories about what he was like. He would be so proud of the strong young woman you've become, she said through tears. He loved you so much, Emma. That's why he made sure you would be provided for. Sarah explained that she had struggled with severe depression after losing Michael, and Robert had convinced her that letting him take care of me permanently would be best for everyone. He had told her that she wasn't stable enough to be a mother, and that I would be better off thinking of Robert and Linda as my parents. He made me believe that loving you meant letting you go, she said. But I never stopped loving you, and I never stopped hoping I would find you again. We made plans to meet in person the following weekend. Sarah lived about 3 hours away and had remarried a wonderful man named David who was excited to meet me. They had been unable to have children together, so I would be his first daughter too. But the story doesn't end there. Word spread quickly through our small town about what had happened at the Morrison family dinner. Several people came forward with information about Robert and Linda's spending habits over the years, and it became clear that they had been living well above their means using money that should have been set aside for me. I ended up working with a lawyer to investigate the misuse of my inheritance. It turned out that Robert had been required to provide annual accounting reports to the probate court about how the insurance money was being used for my benefit. He had been falsifying these reports for years. The legal case was settled out of court, with Robert and Linda agreeing to pay back a significant portion of the money they had taken, plus interest. It wasn't everything, but it was enough to pay for my college education and help me start my adult life. More importantly, I gained something I had never had before, a real family who loved me unconditionally. Sarah and David welcomed me with open arms, and I finally understood what it felt like to belong somewhere. The Morrison family tried to reach out several times after the truth came out, but I wasn't interested in reconciling. Jake sent me a few text messages claiming he was sorry and that he had just been following his parents' lead. Melissa wrote me a long letter explaining that she had felt threatened by me and that's why she had been cruel. But their apologies felt hollow. They weren't sorry for how they had treated me, they were sorry they had been caught. They had 15 years to show me kindness, and they chose cruelty instead. The most satisfying part was running into Uncle Tom at the grocery store a few months later. He tried to approach me with some awkward attempt at reconciliation, but I just looked at him and said, "I'm sorry, do I know you? I only associate with real family now. Today, I'm finishing my first year of college, paid for with the inheritance my biological father left me. I have a close relationship with Sarah and David, and I've connected with Patricia and other members of my real family who have welcomed me with love and acceptance. Most importantly, I learned that DNA doesn't just tell you about your ancestry. Sometimes it reveals the truth about people who have been lying to you your whole life." To anyone out there who has been told they don't belong or aren't worthy of love because of their circumstances, remember that your worth isn't determined by how others treat you. Sometimes the people who are supposed to love us the most are the ones who hurt us the deepest. But there are always people out there who will see your value and love you for who you are. Sometimes you just have to be brave enough to find them. The day I walked out of that house, I stopped being the unwanted adopted child and became the daughter who found her way home. And that DNA test didn't just change my life, it gave me back my identity and my family. Never let anyone make you feel like garbage, because you might just be the treasure they were too blind to see.